Good evening and welcome to In Focus. It's nice to have you back with us on this August evening. Now, it's impossible to read the newspapers and to watch the televisions, the commercial stations, that is, without being aware from all of the ads that it's time to go back to school. And a lot of parents are spending, and grandparents, and that may take in you, parents and grandparents out there, are spending a lot of money getting kids the supplies and the clothes and all of that that's necessary to go back to school. Education, of course, being such a very important part of the first 20, 25 years of the lives of each of us. You know, when you think of it, an infant is born knowing literally nothing but a few basic instincts, and by the time they're 18, 20 years old, they're expected to know enough to run a household and to hold a job and to pay for a family, and a lot of learning has to take place in that period of time. So often, however, when we think about education and back to school, we think only in terms of the public schools, K through 12, or the colleges that are available. But there's an area of education that is increasingly, I think, important for supplying the openings in the workplace that often is overlooked or is not given the recognition that it deserves, and that is trade or technical education. And so today I have with me in the studio Fred Iraola. Now, Fred, you're the director of the J.M. Perry Technical Institute, Perry Institute as you most often call it now. And you've been there for a long period of time. When did you come to Perry?
Well, I came after World War II as a student. I've been a director for 15 years, but that totals about 46 years. Jeff, almost as long as you've been around.
Oh, not quite. Thank you. That's kind. You have been an integral part of trade and technical education since that period of time. You've seen a lot of young people come through and go on from your school to work and go into positions of management and so forth. One of the things that I think instantly people wonder about is you take an 18, a 19, a 20-year-old child looking for, young person, looking for a future. And the question is, should I go to the four-year school and get the liberal arts and some training and so forth, or should I go to a school like Perry? How does one make a choice? What are the choices? Can you give us a brief? We'll get back to it later.
Historically, Jeff, we don't get the 18 to 20-year-olds. We get the 26 and 27-year-olds that have been through high school, been knocked around a bit in the service. Maybe they delivering pizzas or something, and in good times it's pretty good money, in bad times it isn't. But their high school background is so important, especially nowadays for financial aid. So what he takes in high school to prepare himself for advanced training, for post-secondary education, is very, very important. We're not getting it now. They're not getting it. I think perhaps the technology has gone beyond. When I was a kid, they had manual training.
Right.
You built cabinets and those things. You get away
we
with
had
that
wood shop,
anymore.
metal shop,
That's
print
right.
shop, you know.
That's right.
And it required that we take some of those. And I remember making some nice wooden projects and some nice metal projects. Not so much of that happening.
No.
But given the choice, this 26-year-old, and he has a choice. I can get some financial aid because of the circumstances I'm in. Should I go to Perry or should I go to Central or to YVC? How are those choices made?
You know, that's something I wish I had the answer to. And I think probably, this is kind of an indirect answer, how he makes the choice. When he makes the choice, it's the kind of kid we want in the first place. How that's done, I don't know. I think often is that he feels, well, I've failed in the system, and this is the best I can do. It's a matter of personal pride, and it bothers me a bit. Because if there's going to be a change in the attitude of high schools, in the attitude of going through high school and not going to college, to feel that pressure that you're a failure has to come from us. I mention us because I'm one of those myself.
Yes.
I didn't burn the halls up, you know. No. You don't know that, but I didn't.
I've heard you say
but so it has to come from us. It has to. These 26-year-olds have to have pride in what they do, and that's got to reflect back to their brothers or to their cousins or to their friends. It has to come from us. We can't continue, as I did earlier, Jeff, faulting the system. Baloney. It's us. We've got to do that. We've got to have the pride.
One of the things I know that you train is attitudinal training.
Yes.
You'll help that person take pride in what they're becoming in school. Maybe, as we are talking about Perry Institute, we ought to stop right now and give you a little bit of a look at Perry and what goes on. So you'll understand better as we continue our program what we're talking about when we talk about the programs available at Perry. Let's take a look. Life began for Yakima's Perry Technical Institute in 1940. However, the war came, and the Army Air Corps used the buildings located just across Washington Avenue from the airport for the duration. After the war, the school began in earnest. A private, non-profit school designed to help students acquire the skills needed in the current job market, Perry is in an elite group of only 4 in the whole country. To this time, some 7,000 students owe their career education to Perry, and there's just short of 400 students being trained at this time. There are 7 areas of study, graphic arts being just one of them. The students in this 2-year program learn everything from photography to computer art and publishing, with airbrush technique, sign painting, advertising art, and multimedia presentations included in the coursework. These students put in a lot of hours on the various projects, which are taught simultaneously. There are 3 instructors working with the 40 to 50 students in the graphic arts department. As you can see from some of the projects, they learn the skills to do beautiful work. A unique part of this discipline at Perry is a cooperative agreement with Yakima Valley Community College that allows students to receive their AA degree in graphic arts with just 3/4 of coursework at the community college. Graduates of this program have gone on to employment in many parts of the country in various positions, as well as opening their own businesses. Telephones have been a regular part of our lives for as long as most of us can remember. But this field is undergoing incredible advancement, and the near 50 students studying at Perry will be prepared to assume good jobs in the field. An example of the excellence of Perry is the scores their students receive on the required FCC exams. On average, I'm told only 5% of the people who take the test pass it the first time. But 80% of the Perry students pass that accomplishment, with one recent student scoring 98% on the test, the highest score the proctor could remember. These students will learn the skills needed to be candidates for jobs with telephone companies, long-distance companies, to work on microwave installations, computers, with electronic firms, wire services, in medical telecommunications. And over the years, many students have opened their own successful businesses. In the 2 years these students spend at Perry, studying and working from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. each day, they not only learn the telecommunications field, they also learn a good work ethic that will stand them in good stead with their future employers. The tool and die maker of the 20s and 30s was a highly revered and well-paid craftsman. Now in the 90s, it's interesting to notice that machinists are still in demand. Their future is bright, and their pay is good. The 36 students at Perry are studying to be machinists and learning a field that has completely changed over the last 15 years. These students will not only learn all the hands-on tooling processes that machinists have always used, they will also learn all that is new. Computers have been the driving force in much that has changed, and today's Perry students will learn computer-aided design all the way through computer and control machining. What changes in the business, but at the same time, it's a field that retains the benefits of creating objects that require an operator's skill and give that operator a great deal of satisfaction. Couple that with high demand and good pay, and it's a winning combination. This time of year, refrigeration is a necessity in many areas of our lives. Well, when you think about it, it's absolutely essential year-round. 80 students at Perry are preparing to keep that essential element operating in our lives. They're involved in a 2-year program that will teach them refrigeration from domestic products like refrigerator freezers to commercial products like ice machines, walk-in coolers, and all the equipment used in restaurants and grocery stores, including heating and air conditioning units, all the way to the huge industrial applications such as warehouses and high-rise buildings. In the last 7 years, every graduate of this program has been employed in the field. And several of the current students are already on contract to various employers for just as soon as they graduate. Not only is the job market incredible, it pays well. Department Head Dick Dahl has just started a building maintenance program in addition to the 2-year program.
The first graduating class from this one-year program was 100% employed, and the future looks bright. Americans still depend on the automobile, and as long as that's true, we'll need mechanics who are well-trained. The 37 students at Perry will know their business when they complete their 18-month program. Perry is the first school in the state to be certified under the ASE, or Automotive Service Excellence Program. And that certification means students can go right to work in shops that are so certified, and it's a giant step forward. The 8 areas of certification and training at Perry are engine performance, suspension and steering, brakes, including anti-lock braking systems, auto electrical systems, heating and air conditioning, engine rebuilding, automatic transmission and manual transmissions, and drive axles. Perry's shop is impressive with all the latest computer analysis equipment and other tools. Auto mechanics are in demand, and the future for Perry graduates is bright. Perry is also looking to develop a new program for mechanics who've been in the field for several years. That's to retrain them on the latest computer developments. Along with auto mechanics, most drivers at some time have experienced the crunched sheet metal on their car. And that's when it's important to have a well-trained auto body repairman and painter. Perry's 18-month program in this field is impressive. This automotive department is also ASE certified, and all the latest tools are used for straightening the newest styles of auto construction. To get the kind of repairs students need to learn most, the school purchases damaged autos at auction, like this 1989 Ford Tempo that has a completely new rear end. When repaired, the cars are sold so the school can buy more projects. Auto body repair is close to being an art, with the students choosing this field often because of experiences they've had prior to attending the school. Perry also trains electricians, but the modern electrician is far from the line-pulling workman of former years. Oh, a good electrician can still wire a new house or add circuits and outlets to an existing house. But the 50 students at Perry are learning much more. In the 90s, electricians may find themselves in jobs that require skills all the way from basic wiring to the ability to troubleshoot digital electronic circuitry on printed circuit boards in a variable frequency motor drive. Job opportunities exist in construction, industrial areas with programmable logic controllers, other control equipment for light, heating, and air conditioning, for example, with the future being in computer control. The 90 students learning instrumentation at Perry are in an exciting and rapidly developing field. One recent graduate is working in Singapore aboard a submarine with robotic arms that works on offshore drilling projects. But most of the past graduates are working in the Pacific Northwest. In this program, they learn the controlling processes used in industry for temperature, levels, flows, pH, acidity, and other water qualities, along with environmental controls, controlling air pollution, water quality, and much more. Graduates of this program are in great demand, and the students come from far and wide to learn the skills taught here. Perhaps the next time you pass the new signs along Washington Avenue by Perry, you'll have greater respect for the work that goes on in these buildings, for the staff, and for the students.
That's just a basic look at the 7 programs that are currently being taught at Perry. I hope you have gained some appreciation with it. Fred, as I toured through your school, and as I saw the things that you did, and then as I wrote and put together this little piece, I was kind of impressed that the things that your students are learning are by and large things that relate to quality of life, to maintaining the standard of life that we have, whether it be in refrigeration or instrumentation or auto mechanics or whatever. They're very basic programs, basic skills, telephone and so forth. How do you determine which programs you will offer at Perry? They're very basic programs, basic skills, telephone and so forth. How do you determine which programs you will offer at Perry?
Some of them we inherited 50 years ago, but telecommunications was one example of a change, and that the breakup of the most magnificent telephone system ever created in the world, and they broke that up. And we saw that had to be continued. And as you said, that's communications. That's real life, equipment to equipment, person to person. So 5 years ago, I believe it was 5 years ago, you can probably tell me after the interviewing the instructor, we started that. We look for those things. Programs that have to do with life, with people, with industry. You can get off on some of these programs that short-term programs, but when you have to charge the tuition we charge, and if there are no jobs available at the other end, they don't survive. So you have to stay with those, and that's one way we determine it. For example, in body shop, I tried and failed. Failed in adding upholstery and autographics to try to make this graduate have more options when he goes in the field. Well, we dropped them both. It was a trial thing, and upholstery didn't work. Neither did kids loved it, but it didn't enhance their ability to go to work.
And so the autographics are great, but just not enough demand to make it a viable product.
That's a good example.
What is it that Perry does that gives you, other than the choice of programs, and obviously that's very key, but you have an incredible employability statistic for the young people that complete your programs. What is special about Perry?
I like to think that we never get any better than our students. Never will. Never have, never will. And there is the key. Our students, some of the programs have been around 40 or 50 years. When they started, had 2 or 3 people. I can remember Instruments, for example, happens to be where I taught. It started after World War II, aircraft instrumentation, what you find in World War aircraft, and that's the man we employed, altimeters, airspeed indicators, that sort of thing. You're getting into that now. It started modestly with 2 Navy pilots and I think 3 other people. That now, we started with that. We saw the need in pulp mills, for example, for recording and controlling, and we just continued to build that. Just continued to build that. At my age, I've already forgotten what the question was. But Instruments is a good example of being close to industry, finding out what the needs are, and build slowly. And you got to build slowly, Jeff. For example, we were turning out a class of 15 every year. As they became, and that's what I've got to talk about, those kids begin to get placed, and they did well. Then that employer comes back. You got a kid like him? Then that increased. We said, we've got to enroll and graduate students to meet the demand once every 8 months. So now we got 3 graduating classes. A few years ago, we took the chance and graduated every 6 months. Now, we got to be very careful. We could double the enrollment in that, Jeff, but we got to worry at the end of that 6 months, is there a job opportunity? Right now, we're meeting the demand. The demand comes from our graduates. They do well, they're respected, and the industry comes back and picks them up. That's the whole strength of that place.
You feel a real responsibility to the students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't have that,
obviously,
I don't know how
it's only good business. If you're not placing kids, they're not going to come to you.
Absolutely.
But on the other side...
And you're not going to feel good yourself, Jeff.
Yeah, okay. That's
you got to feel good, or you can't operate.
Now, that instrumentation program is an interesting one. You've had one kid come all the way from Africa to be in that program.
That's right. That's right. And he's now working in the Tri-Cities, I believe, Westinghouse, Hanford.
Is that right?
He came with some education in the oil business, and the country sent him over there, subsidized him. He didn't want to go back. He never did.
Shame.
Yes. That's happened also with a couple of students at Boise Cascade, Wallula. This is a pulp mill, a large one, in Wallula, Washington. They tried sending and underwriting the expense of an employee they had, and they were supposed to come back to work, but they didn't make them sign a contract. As a matter of fact, you can't.
No.
Neither one of those went back, and that was the end of that kind of promotion.
They didn't want to do that.
No, they put out the expense and never benefited from it.
Fred, I look at machinists, and I can remember the tool and die maker with his rack of files and his tap, and these kind of tools that he did by hand. And I look at the high-tech machinery that a student progresses to, and where do those students go to work?
There isn't a machine shop. I doubt that. We toured some when we bought the 2 machines that I showed you the other day. We toured some shops in the Seattle area, and even and the people that were selling the equipment, the Amazon Corporation happened to be, said you ought to look at a small shop, a middle-sized shop, and a large shop, and you go all those shops and you've got CNC equipment.
That's
Computer,
right.
You're not going to survive any other way.
Mm-hmm.
They always maintain some of the standard lathes and milling machines and so on, but if you're in the business and don't have computer numerical control, you're in trouble. And imagine what that does to the need for educating. How much more math?
They have to learn a lot more.
Absolutely a lot more. And it's
Computer
an exciting
skills
thing.
and design skills and things
Yep.
that they might just learn from doing before over a few years. Really, they need to be taught
Oh, absolutely.
those skills.
Absolutely.
But the jobs are out there.
Jeff, this class, I just signed the white cards, which is their record of grades and where they were employed, for the 8 machinists that graduated June 15th. Now, upon graduation, I talked to Bob Height, and I said, Bob, your guys aren't going to work. They usually, in the past, have left. We have an early out provision that says if there's a job available now and not
Go.
at the time of graduation, we allow for that. And I says, they're not leaving. He says, well, it's the darndest class I ever saw. He says, nobody wants to go to work. Well, he just turned it in. Now, what is it, August, first week in August, and he decided to go to work. All but one were placed right here in our community.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a matter of them making up their mind. I guess I better go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the wife pushed him. I don't know. Probably paid for his way through there.
When a student comes to you, Fred, does he come saying, I want to learn instrumentation, or I want to learn refrigeration? Does he pretty well have his mind made up before he comes to you?
Half of them, I would say, because I, along with Frank Johnson, the business manager, tour everyone. I mean, that's a thing we do, and many of them, especially the 40-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
they're not sure. And they say, I just don't know. I've got to do something. And so the answer I always give them immediately is it technical or is it trade? Because technical, a 40, 45-year-old, he hasn't been in school in a long time, and if he
Yes.
goes to instruments or telecom or electric and machine shop on those, he's got right back to the bookwork. So I get him to that and tell him, I don't accept excuses that they can't do it or they're afraid of math. We won't do that. But it's important that they know that before they go in, because they may not like the technical aspects. They may prefer a trade. But yeah, 50-50. They don't, especially kids, young kids.
How do you help a person make up their mind? Well, gee, air conditioning looks really good. I like HVAC. Maybe instrumentation. That's kind of, well, electrician. That's not bad. And he's just kind of vacillating.
Yes, he does. One of the things that helps make up his mind, the older person. The younger one, he's ready to travel. The older one, and we have them, they got a 26-year average. You got to have old guys too. Is the ability to work in your community. Most kids, except the young ones, like this community. So you take them to instrumentation, excuse me, Jeff, and look at the record of placement, which we have, a 50-year history of placement. And you just go down there and say California, Oregon, Idaho, Utah for placement. If he has a family, just starting a family, a couple of kids, it happens. You're buying a house, you're buying a car, you got 3 kids, and you got to go to school. To move all that is difficult, and he prefers to stay. So sometimes, even if they like a more technical, they'll go to a program, the chances for employment in the community.
To stay
So,
here.
yeah, that's a lot of it.
What
That's a lot
percentage
it.
of your students are on some form of financial aid?
I don't know, but it seems like all of them. I don't have a figure for you. Obviously, it's not all of them, but
a big percentage.
big percentage of them. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to
I
dodge this thing,
understand
Jeff.
that.
I don't know. I know this. We just got our default rate from the U.S. Department of Education. And I hope you don't cut me off here,
No.
Rick or Jeff. It's 4.2% cohort.
Now, you're
default
in a
rate.
field that where there has been great concerns about the default rate, and that's in trade and technical education.
Yes, it is.
And some schools have incredibly high default rates. Your students have 4% default rate at your school. Why?
They go to work. They're able to pay. I think that's the key.
Okay.
Matter of fact, an auditor, financial aids, a person from the Seattle area that audited the financial aids, said that. He says, they said, there's a female, said that this must be the reason. Because we get the see, the community colleges and so on have to take everybody.
Mm-hmm. But
So
you limit
we
it.
select a little bit, too, so.
Let me talk about that a little bit. You take a student in, you're going to teach them to use a lathe and a drill press and a tap and a die and a computer. But that's not all you teach them. You put them on an 8 o'clock to 3:30 schedule, 5 days a week, almost year-round.
But
when they come out of it, they know how to work. They have some attitudinal, some work ethic training as well.
yes, sir. As a matter of fact, Jeff, we require that they punch a clock. 8 in the morning and 3:30 in the afternoon, as you would be expected to do out in the field. Yes, and all our people, of course, are journeymen, and they know what work habits say. They know what the industry needs. So
Time's running short. I have to
Yes.
ask another question. A 19-year-old, he's played around with some thoughts of community college. He's still living at home. He comes down, he looks at your program, he goes home and he tells Dad, I'm thinking about going to Perry. Dad says, I thought you would go and get a 4-year degree. And the parent comes down to visit the program too, and he sees Fred Iraola or Frank Johnson. He's concerned. He wants his child to know liberal arts, but he also wants him to have an ability to support himself and to support a family. In a minute, how do you respond to that?
we can only, in 2 years, the cost of education can't get into those things. We'd like them to have those liberal arts things.
I realize that's not part of your area.
You can't. We can do it. We can certainly hire people. But think of the expense. These kids are there to get a job. Now, once they get a job, our people, it's up to them. You know, not just a few have gone on and gotten degrees, engineering degrees. Not just a few. Someday I'm going to get that statistic. Also, we have an articulation degree with Yakima Valley College, where the kids can get some of those things, to be able to read better and write and report writing and those things.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the graphic arts students enroll immediately. And then, so we're limited to what we do because we have to. Jobs are important, Jeff. That's what he's after. He came without a job. He doesn't want to spend 5 years.
1.5 years to 2 years at Perry Institute gives high predictability of employment.
Yes, sir.
4 years at a college these days does not.
No.
Except in very few fields.
Yeah, I have 3 college graduates, children. They're all employed.
And I know that some of your students, not a high percentage, but some of your students have already gone through college first.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, one of our instructors, I think I mentioned this to you, Darrell Hazelwood, is a graduate of Central Washington University in biology, and a good man, isn't wrong.
Then he came to you and did electrician and came back and taught.
That's right.
I'm hurrying because we're out of time. Thank you for sharing the story of J.M. Perry.
No, I know, it's so big. I had a little trouble with my locker partner, and